Guys, as this episode goes out, it's been hijacked by Aston Martin, who have made sure that this Azerbaijan GP preview is not exactly an Azerbaijan GP preview. It becomes a preview of 2025, 6 and beyond, because in that time period, we will see Lance Stroll drive an Adrian Newey designed car. It's not official yet at the time of recording, but surely, Kunal, I mean, where else is he going to go?
More than where else is he going to go, I'm also wondering what else could Aston Martin be announcing, just a couple of hours before we record this episode. But I know from my sources, in fact, it's now all over the internet. It is an announcement. They're not denying Adrian Newey joining the team, which means they will confirm Adrian Newey joining the team, unless they confirm that Yuki Tsunoda will also join the team at some point in the future, given that there is a strong Honda link as well. But exciting times. And, Samuel, it was always known that Adrian Newey is going to do something. He's going to pick up another challenge. He kept saying that. There was this Leora Williams, which is where his story actually started and went sour because of their management commitments to him not staying up. There was a story of could Mercedes take him or could Ferrari take him? And Ferrari, of course, has already announced a change in their technical structure, which was one of those hints saying, "Oh, actually, we're not taking him." And I guess it's now just down to Aston Martin. The one thing I am most curious about is, will Adrian Newey get any shares? Will he get management? Will he get any ownership in the team? Because that's the best way for his legacy to continue in Formula One without relying on teams to jump jobs for, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, money is not the problem with Adrian Newey anymore, is it? He's earned all there is to earn. He's also designed a road car as well, which is his dream for ages. But I'm not going to mention, at least to him directly, that his road car actually broke down with a very famous driver behind the wheel in Monaco. A driver who we feel is also going to be driving some more Adrian Newey cars down the line. Fernando Alonso. Like, imagine that happening. Alonso, for the first time in his career, who knows, maybe he'll be there by then, but he could be driving an Adrian Newey race car. I find this to be perfect. It's like Sachin Tendulkar and, I don't know, Cristiano Ronaldo playing together in a dream team, of all you know. That is perfect. We've been waiting for this for ages, but it's strange to see that it's never happened before. Until now. And it's not Lewis who gets Adrian. It's Fernando who does.
Can you imagine the twist of fate? The one time Fernando Alonso chooses to stay with the team actually turns for the better, or at least hires people for the turn for better, because Aston Martin now has a star. Okay, I'll put it this way. Aston Martin has a starrier engineering lineup than a driver lineup in 2025. I don't want to get into the details of the driver lineup, but my point is Mission 33, which is what we've been hyping all of last year, could actually be closer than we ever imagined. Fernando Alonso himself, he must not be sleeping these nights, dreaming about Adrian Newey and his designed cars already.
I swear, that is just mind-blowing. But wait. We need to get back to the whole question we posed at the start. Who is the worst driver to drive an Adrian Newey car? We figured out, but when we say worst, we don't necessarily mean the worst in terms of talent, just worst in terms of their tenure. I found 3 names. Robert Doornbos, who I forgot actually raced in Formula One. He did a couple of races for Red Bull in 2006, which wasn't technically an Adrian Newey car, remember, because he only came in the February of 2006. So I'm going to give Robert the benefit of the doubt. There was obviously Mauricio Gugelmin, Brazilian driver, raced in Formula One for 3 seasons, won a race in Champ Car as well. His stint in Formula One wasn't quite star-studded, but when he was with Adrian Newey at March, he wasn't quite breaking the world apart with his talents. But then there's also Danny Kvyat, who, let's not forget, has got many podiums, but has a nasty reputation of being a bit of a crashy driver, if that's the way to put it. But his talents were evident. I am conflicted, Kunal. Statistically, Lance Stroll would have more points, podiums, race starts than Robert and Mauricio. would it be fair to put Lance as potentially soon to be the worst driver to drive in an Adrian Newey car? I'm being too harsh on a Tuesday. Come on.
You are. And to all those Canadian fans who love Lance Stroll, at least the ones who tell me on Twitter that they're big fans of Lance Stroll, which is all of 5 people. But no, I'll tell you what, there's one more worst driver who has driven an Adrian Newey car. And mind you said driven an Adrian Newey car, not raced one. Christian Horner drove in place of Sebastian Vettel at the Goodwood this year.
Yes.
So Lance is one step ahead. He at least made it to Formula One in Martin Brundle's words, right?
2 steps, because Adrian Newey himself drove an Adrian Newey car, the Williams FW14B, and he spun it around and couldn't get it to go fast. That's number 2. So he's in decent company. Being faster than Christian Horner and Adrian Newey, at least on paper, is a good thing.
Yes, it is. Not bad. But great announcement, great coup by Lawrence Stroll. And Sumit, he's always turned around and said, I am in Formula One with my heart, with my brains, and with my wallet.
Yeah.
And is he on his way to buying a world championship for his son? Is he making a mockery of that whole more the money, the faster you go phrase, which is always been a part of motorsport? And I'll put it this way. Imagine that there is actually genuinely a super quick race car, which is always something that Adrian Newey has done, especially just before the start of a new era. He's always had the upper hand going into a new era of Formula One, right?
Yeah.
Which is what's happening in 26. They've got the Honda power unit. Of course, Fernando Alonso also has a contract till end of 26. Okay. But what if they just decide at some point, damn, this is a fast car. It's like the RB19 from last year. It's winning over everyone by 30, 40 seconds. We just need to get rid of Fernando and hire, say, Nikita Mazepin next to Lance Stroll, or hire, I don't know, any other driver who Lance doesn't feel, or Sergei Sirotkin, who partnered with Lance at Williams several years ago. And they just try and win the championship with Lance. Anything can happen if they're able to buy Adrian Newey, to that driver lineup. And Adrian Newey, mind you, said there are 2 drivers I want to work with. And I not want to, but I wish I had worked with, was Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso. He's getting Fernando Alonso. But if you would have asked him who are the drivers you don't want to work with, maybe you would have found the other Aston Martin driver's name on that. Not publicly, of course. I'm being harsh.
We all are. But I want to loop this around to your experiences. And by the way, folks, this is a good time for an introduction. This is the Inside Line F1 podcast. And the reason why I, Somil Arora, bring up Kunal Shah's experiences is because Kunal was previously the former marketing head of the team that is today known as the Aston Martin Formula One racing team, Force India. Today, Kunal is working as a TV expert at the Viaplay network in Norway, while I am being the official commentator, presenter for the MotoGP Indian Grand Prix, for the Indian Racing League, Indian Supercross League, and so on and so forth. And we're also missing Sundaram, F1 Stats Guru, for this episode as well, who's done wonders in the world of stats and in social media content creation, part of the WTF1 talent roster too. But looping it back to Kunal, looping it back to his experiences. Kunal, this is your team, the team that you used to work for. I know it's not the same factory. It's been rebuilt at the same location, adjacent, I heard. But it's in essence the same people. I know a lot of the people at the top might have changed, but lots of the people working on the engineering side, on the technical side, on the race strategy side, people carry on and people stay the same. What are your sentiments of finally getting Adrian Newey to the Silverstone team? Especially considering that when you were there, your former bosses actually wanted him in that team, but this really couldn't.
Exactly. I think Lawrence Stroll has actually delivered on 2 big dreams that Vijay Mallya and Subrata Roy had when the team was called Force India and Racing Point. So what were those dreams? Okay. First was to buy that plot of land and then put up a new factory, because when Force India was running, we were actually running in the same factory where Jordan Grand Prix was running, and its subsequent avatars that followed, which was Spiker and Midland. Okay, we were using the same tools that Jordan had put in place. The same Eddie Jordan, who's also, by the way, the manager for Adrian Newey. So while Adrian Newey makes money, Eddie Jordan makes a part of that money in this Aston Martin deal that will soon be announced.
What?
So the first dream was buying that plot of land. We always had it in our sights to expand, to get a bigger facility. Of course, this meant a capital investment, which we couldn't, or at least the owners couldn't put or commit at that point of time in their cycles of being team owners. So that was one. And the second is what we've actually covered in my Force India Stories podcast series episode, Samuel, which you've nicely brought up, where Subrata Roy, who was the chairman of the Force India Formula One team, actually said, what's it going to take for us to hire Adrian Newey? And one thing, of course, was the money. But the second thing was giving him the tools, giving him the right set of people to work with, giving him the right set of drivers to work with. And I believe that at Aston Martin, that is something that the team and Lawrence Stroll have specifically put together. And this is why I believe Adrian Newey is only going to make that team and car go faster.
Let's see. Let's wait and see how things eventually play out. But it's such a big hire, and I also feel that there's more potential when you consider the fact that there's a manufacturer involved. It's a new factory, the right people. There's an air of optimism. But if they are a serious racing team, they'll go for 2 serious racing drivers. I think we should carry on the discussion on further to the next point, which is what's it going to be like for the team that loses Adrian Newey, Kunal? Because this weekend at Baku, we're coming into what could be one of the last few circuits where Red Bull have conventionally been very good. Because all the conventional racetracks, your Circuit of the Americas, your Qatar, your Abu Dhabi, these are places where McLaren will theoretically be faster because all similar circuits in the year previously, they have been dominant. You take Hungary as an example. You take Spa, where McLaren were faster, but then eventually Mercedes ended up getting the win because of the race-based management and McLaren goofing up qualifying. These sort of areas are places where Red Bull used to be dominant until last year, but aren't quite this year. Baku is a place that fits into their zone. But when we spoke to Helmut Marko earlier on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, he gave us a very big piece of insight about how Red Bull are just not able to make their car work. And I am now confused, Kunal, because long straights, low downforce, high top speeds, full commitment, that sounds like a Red Bull Racing and Max Verstappen circuit. But we were discussing before this episode, if there's one thing we know for sure, it's that Max could well not be the winner here.
In fact, and I challenge every single Formula One fan who's listening to this or even not listening to this episode, we are actually going into a racing weekend literally not knowing which team and driver could be on pole and which team and driver could score a win. And let's actually dissect this. You very nicely explained Red Bull's challenges. Helmut Marko's explained how ever since China, they've found that there are tools that are probably not correlating and that performance is just not there in their car. And we've seen the drop-off. Max Verstappen, for the first time, hasn't won 6 races on the trot. And I believe this last happened like maybe in 2020 or something. Okay. The reason why it's crucial to explain why we don't know which team's actually going to win is, Ferrari themselves, they've scored 4 pole positions here, or 3 poles and 1 sprint pole, but scored no win. And, Charles Leclerc actually joked that after winning in Monaco, they had the first worst 4 races that followed after. So they want to make sure that after winning in Monza last time, they don't have their worst results following them as well. When it comes to Mercedes, if they find the sweet spot, like you've explained in Spa or the other places where they did, and if it's a little cooler, okay, they could certainly be in the reckoning as well. And McLaren, who's got that all-round, performing car, both on Saturday and on Sunday, are yet to figure how to score 100% of all the wins they possibly can, even though Zach Brown has said he's really hopeful that the team is able to challenge for wins at every round this season, every pending round this season, which literally means that, yes, there we go. We have no clue who could win this weekend.
Yeah. And Ferrari, let's just put it this way, Ferrari have a great track record of not being the best follow-up team after getting a race win. Let me tell you a few interesting numbers and stories. After their win in Monaco earlier this year, in Montreal, where were Ferrari? P11 and P12 in qualifying. Both of their cars retired from the race just one race after they got a famous win in Monaco. The year before that, when Ferrari won with actually not the year before that, a few races ago that before that, Carlos Sainz in Australia after he won in Japan, Ferrari went there P3 and P4. They were 20 seconds away from Max Verstappen. That was their follow-up answer to their win in Australia. Then Japan 2023 after Carlos Sainz won in Singapore. What was their follow-up act? They were P4 and P6, 6.5 tenths of a second away from Max Verstappen in pole position. The race gap, that's a different story altogether. They are a tough team for follow-up acts. And the interesting part is, Baku is precisely one of those races that Ferrari have tweaked or tinkered their car to be better at. Hear me out why. Their technical director, start of the year, said, we need to be better at our tire management. We need to be better in all-round scenarios where our car is able to be as fast as it is, but be better at managing the tires without chewing them up. In Monza, they did that to perfection. Why did they win against McLaren? It was not the raw pace. McLaren's were clearly faster, but they were able to make their tires go on for longer. And then they've also gotten a much more optimized rear wing from what we hear, which is helping them reach more top speeds. But this whole discussion all comes down to Baku, which Kunal is not known to be a very high abrasion or a high degradation track, where tire management does not matter as much as it does in a Monza, where we have high top speeds, high commitment, low drag, which is what worked for Ferrari. But then on the opposite, there is also a team like Red Bull who has aced this circuit. They have the most successful driver in the history of Baku in Sergio Perez, who has 2.5 wins, including that sprint one last year, and also a brilliant podium courtesy of his Force India days. And I just can't figure out who's where. And given the track conditions, as you mentioned, if it's cooler, which it's not forecast to be on Sunday, it's about 28 degrees ambient, Mercedes could also be in the mix. And their new floor will finally be tested this weekend. So it's all so many permutations. Like realistically, this is the place where we have 8 different drivers contending for the win. Not 7, 8.
Absolutely. Checo Perez is the king of the streets of Baku, the only driver with 2 wins, only driver to have multiple wins in Baku. Most podiums. So he's got 2 wins, of course. He's got 5 podiums. He could score his 40th podium in Formula One this weekend, and of course, hence his 30th podium with Red Bull Racing. And here's, of course, to balance out all the good, because after Logan Sargent has been replaced by Franco Colapinto in Monza, Checo Perez is the only driver amongst all the driver pairings to have never out-qualified his teammate in 2024. So he will be looking to use all his might, all his love for Baku to correct some of these stats if he possibly can do so. But you mentioned about the circuit. It's a very, very beautiful circuit. Some of the key terms we are going to, sort of hear all weekend is land of fire, and how there's this fire burning in one part of the world in Azerbaijan for over 65 years because of the gases coming from the ground. Baku will be known as the city of winds. I know Somil is waiting to make fun of those advertising boards. Well done, Baku, if they do come up. But something that we should keep in mind from a circuit point of view, and this is the data that Pirelli has shared. So asphalt abrasion on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is the lowest and 5 is the maximum, is just 1. So a street circuit with not a lot of degradation. It's the requirements are mainly for the right rear tire, because lots of right-handed corners, most of them turning left, especially in the first third of the circuit. So traction requirements are 5 on 5, literally. Downforce requirements are just 2 on 5, and that's an interesting part which we will get into. And the tire stresses are also 3 on 5 or 2.5 on 5. So the point is, we are going to go to a circuit which is hot with lesser abrasion, but not needing too much tire management, which is crucial. And also one more thing, Somil, track evolution. It's a street circuit. It's got support races. Okay. which means that the track evolution, especially between sessions, the track is even open to public, okay, for driving. So track evolution is going to be very high come qualifying as well. But, the one thing we should sort of keep our eyes out on, and I'm just going through my notes as we do that, is this is one of those races where statistically pole doesn't guarantee you a win.
Yeah.
And I sort of love that. Okay. So in the last 7 races, only 2 have been won from pole position and 3 have been won from the front row. And in 2017, Daniel Ricciardo won from 10th place.
Yes.
And I'm sure you remember that one overtake where he overtook like 3 cars entering into turn 1.
Exactly. And in this, I mean, given this whole thing, given how Baku is such an easy place to overtake, where racing is going to be so good, it just makes me wonder just who will be the winner here. I can't tell. There's just so many variables. I want to say Max because the Red Bull works best in a straight line with low downforce. But then last weekend he had engine issues, and according to him, they have to rebuild the whole car. How good is that car going to be in that case? Mercedes, is their floor working? Are they going to be good in the hot conditions? Ferrari, is their floor working? Because they got I know I'm stressing on the floor quite a fair bit, but it's a fun point. Ferrari introduced a new floor back for the Spanish GP. That didn't work, so they reverted back to the Imola configuration. Then they came with a stopgap in Hungary that was just meant to fix the porpoising issues that it caused. And then now in Monza, they came with a new upgraded floor that finally seemingly did the trick. But according to Fred Vasseur, they can't tell because Monza is an outlier. So then you go to Baku.
That's true, and I think Baku's also sort of an outlier because when we look at its high speed, and like you've explained, from turn 16, the exit of turn 16 to the braking of turn 1 is 2.2 kilometers long straight, right? Which I think is beautiful. And to keep it in perspective, all of Monaco is 3.3 kilometers long. Okay, so there's this one straight which is so long, and that also causes a lot of engineering headaches. Do you set up to be optimal on the high speed straights, okay, and sacrifice the corners, or do you set up for better cornering performance and then be like a sitting duck on the high speed straight? So that's interesting. Another thing, safety car always in the mix. Something always happens in Baku, and it always does. If I can just sort of rephrase the great Murray Walker, because there are race stoppages, and we've got to remember when there's a safety car restart, that long straight actually causes headache for a lot of people. And I think, Somil, this is one of the best, best Herman Tilke designed circuits. It's got a mix of Monza with super high speed long straights, okay, and you can literally take 3 cars into turn 1. We've seen that several times, and then you've got a mix of Monaco in the old street, old city, where literally I think it's just 7 point something meters long, so hardly a car and a half can go through the old street. So maybe that's a hint, or maybe that's which was a team that won in Monaco and which was a team that won in Monza, and could they win at a circuit which is a mix of Monaco and Monza?
I agree with you. If I had to put my money on a team winning this weekend, it would be Ferrari, and that is the exact reason why. They won in Monza, which is the closest circuit to Sector 1 and Sector 3, long straights, lots of medium speed corners. And they won in Monaco, which is also the closest circuit to Sector 2 in Baku, which is low speed, slow turn-ins, lots of left-right corners where you've got to be nimble, which is where Ferrari have been good, which is where Leclerc has been good. The guy has had pole position here in every qualifying session since 2021. 21 qualifying, 22 qualifying, 23 qualifying, and 23 sprint as well. That's 4 in a row. I'm going to be putting my money on Leclerc, and the reason why I'm not going McLaren is because McLaren traditionally have proven to be faster around conventional circuits with lots of medium to high downforce and particularly long corners. That's where they really find themselves doing very well. Look at Hungary as an example. They were absolutely untouchable over there. And this makes it a very interesting point. Baku has a grand total of how many long corners? I can't remember one. McLaren could be in a soup here this weekend, especially when they're notoriously known to be one of the not so good teams in terms of straight line performance, just because the way the cars optimize for their downforce packages. We've seen that on the speed trap so many times. The McLarens will often be in the second half, but they'll be faster in the quicker corners. So I, in my head, am so confused about who really is going to be the top team here. Is it Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren? What's the order like?
Okay, make a choice.
I'm going to go Leclerc for the win again.
I'm going to go with Ferrari for being competitive. I am not choosing which driver for the win. I get a feeling McLaren will still be the ones battling. Two things now we're going to keep an eye on with regards to McLaren is Lando Norris's start again. Whether he's on pole or not, will he still lose positions on the opening lap?
Yeah.
Okay. Baku is one of those tough circuits where it is very easy to lose position, very easy to lose a front wing, sometimes rear tire, all of it on the opening lap. You've got to be careful. And then the second is this whole hype between Monza and now. There's been this, section of fans on Twitter and social media saying McLaren are silly, and this has been led by Will Buxton, of course. And I don't sort of disagree with him, but it's about McLaren using team orders. Blatant. Give that opportunity to Lando Norris and let him score the win and let him score maximum points, and he would have been closer to Max. Yes, all of that is true, but Piastri hasn't been so far away that they would demoralize him by just asking him to move over. Let's remember that. And I actually asked some of these fans, why do you want McLaren to use team orders? And the silliest answer was, we want a different world champion. And that's not a reason why you should you should want team orders for. But anyway, so let's see how many points is Lando Norris able to get or break into Max Verstappen's lead. It's some 62 odd points. And if Max is qualifying in the midfield, which is possible, unless they tell Checo to give him a tow, which is also possible.
Yeah.
That opening lap in the midfield is $1 million, in expenses, because you have a lot of these. I think there's a left turn and there's a left turn, and there are three left right-handed corners, all of them capable of damaging your car on the opening lap.
And remember, Russell and Verstappen were fighting here, I think just a year ago, and they made contact and they had a few words. It was around those same corners. It's called the street fight circuit, at least by me, for a reason, because you often tend to see street fights like that. And also drivers locking up, going inside a certain runoff area and then being unable to reverse, which can also be a thing, because sometimes it's just a hard place to do. You might also see some really cool J-turns this weekend. And that's something that's really incredible. Some drivers just go in, like Vettel did, spin the car around and then just able to go back. It's a spectacle in every sense of the way. But
wait a minute, which reminds me, Baku actually has given us a lot of memories in just 7 races that it's hosted for us. You just mentioned a driver missing a braking point, going straight up, magic button, Lewis Hamilton. That's what comes to my mind.
Yes.
Then in 2021, wasn't it Max Verstappen who had a blowout? Yes.
Yes, the tire blowout. No,
the tire.
Wasn't that Bottas who had the blowout?
Bottas also probably had one, but Max Verstappen was leading the race.
Yes, you're right.
And he had a blowout, yes.
Bottas had a puncture.
And just before that, Lance Stroll had a blowout as well. Okay, I remember that. And then Lance Stroll scored a podium here, I think in the opening race. No,
17.
The opening race. 17. Where he was second, but Bottas slipstreamed his way through to P2, and then Stroll finished third in the Williams Mercedes. And then Daniel Ricciardo winning 2017 from 10th. Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen going into turn 1 underneath each other, or whatever you call it.
Which was, I believe, the 2017 race was where they had Lewis and Sebastian clashing, and then Lewis's headrest popping out, and then Lewis having to forcefully box because of that, and then Ricciardo in 10th getting the win as a result, and then Vettel getting a penalty for his collision. It's
and we're not done yet, because there was also Roman Grosjean hitting the wall and that famous radio message.
Yes,
Ericsson hate us.
That was his engineer, by the way. People think it's Grosjean,
Yeah. It was his engine. Yeah.
They blame it on him for absolutely no reason. But there was more. Leclerc crashing, I believe, in 2019,
I'm
hitting the wall.
stupid.
I'm stupid.
And he did it
Uh,
again in 2020, didn't he, or something?
but then since then, he's been a master of Baku.
Yeah.
I mean, his qualifying
Absolutely.
laps have been unbelievable around here. And what else did we have? In 21, we had that phenomenal race. 22 was a bit of a dull one. 23, we had so many incredible fights with Sergio eventually getting the win. Hey, 22, wasn't that Sergio's last win of the year?
Oh, yeah, that was his last win of the year. And then 23 was his last ever win in Formula One yet.
Oof,
Correct.
yeah. Wow. Wow. Okay,
Yes.
so you've picked the Ferrari drivers. I'm now going to force you to pick any one. Actually, no, wait. Before we go to our final predictions, there's another Ferrari driver we need to be talking about, and it's Oliver Behrman. He's going to be making his Haas debut this weekend, and it's going to be a really interesting story because from what we hear, actually, what's Behrman like in Formula 2, Kunal? You follow a lot of Formula 2. Is he the elbows out, nudgy racer driver that Haas tends to like? Because when we saw him in Saudi Arabia, we couldn't tell a lot about that. Is he in spirit a Haas driver?
I would say he's either way. He's by contract a Haas driver. I would say I don't believe his Formula Two season has gone as well as anyone would have imagined, let alone his own self. But I guess he was just pushed by Ferrari and backed by Ferrari to get that seed into Haas, much as Antonelli was given that push by Mercedes to get that seat at Mercedes, right? And sometimes you just need these kind of moves in such kind of teams and people backing you to see you all the way through till Formula One, giving you a break. And I would say I was impressed more by Behrman in Formula 2 last year than this year. And then it's very easy for people to say from the outside, oh, Prema's not got Formula 2 right. But hey, there are so many discrepancies in Formula 2, even between teammates. And I'd rather not say more. But it's just where it lies. So I'm glad he's there. He did really well in Jeddah in that Ferrari, which was a leading car, I would say, especially in the first half of the year, first 3-4 races of the year. First 4 races before Miami, Ferrari was challenging Red Bull and nobody else. And because McLaren still hadn't brought their Miami upgrade, if you remember. So it'll be good to see how he goes in a midfield. And like I said, the midfield opening lap in Baku is always one which is damaging from a budget cap point of view as well.
Yeah. For Behrman, it's going to be some task this weekend to survive and take Kevin Magnussen's place, who's finally gotten the ban. It was a matter of when, not if, it's finally happened. And we're getting to see this Behrman debut early on. But a short word on the midfield as well. I don't want to be a midfield driver this weekend, Kunal. It's going to be so much volatility. And I just feel this is where it's going to be such a big test for Franco Colapinto, because this is one of those circuits where Williams has to do really well, where there's volatility around, where there's not so much tire wear, lots of long straights, which plays into their historic car characteristic, which is good on the straights, bad everywhere else. It is going to be a fun weekend to see how much a team like Williams can get out of it.
Especially because Williams is, clearly trying to make sure that they recover. They've not had the best of seasons. They've had, Logan Sargent needing to be replaced. And teams like Aston Martin, teams like Haas, just seem to have had a better run. Aston Martin, in fact, has been top 6 in every race held in Baku. So could it be that the weekend they announce is actually one of those weekends where they have a strong result with both their cars? And you since spoke of the midfield. Yuki Tsunoda has been top 8 in qualifying in his 3 previous visits in Baku. And George Russell could actually clinch his qualifying head-to-head against Lewis Hamilton this weekend. If he goes 12-4, that's it. Lewis would have been out-qualified. Lewis cannot win the qualifying head-to-head battle against George Russell. So lots of things to look forward to this weekend. For all the McLaren fans, they've had 13 podiums in 24, 12-race streak of being on the podium since China for the first time since 2012 when Lewis Hamilton left the team. And crucially, Norris has outqualified Oscar Piastri in the last 8 races. Okay. And McLaren could, if they do, score a 1-2 in the race on Sunday, could score their 50th overall 1-2 finish in Formula One. But they've never had a top 4 finish in Baku before. But that comes with a caveat, because in the last 4 or 5 years, if there's one race that's literally moved around in the calendar the most, it's Baku. We are in September this year and next year, but I think last year it was June, the year before that was April.
Yeah.
So they're just sort of like, I would probably race twice in Baku, first half of the year and second half of the year as well.
I agree. It is one of the best races to go racing. And we're going to find that out this weekend. Man, okay. Final predictions. I'm going Leclerc. Hate it because my heart obviously belongs to Carlos, but you cannot deny how good Charles is at this circuit in particular. Who are you going for? Please say Sainz. Come on, let's just keep the equilibrium, right? That's what good teammates do.
I would say Oscar Piastri.
Are you seriously backing McLaren for the win here?
Yes, I think McLaren is going to come good. And I think it's going to be Piastri. I think, in the last 5 races, he's scored the same number of points as Lando Norris. So the step up he's made mid-season has been incredible. And that's one of my key reasons to be like, no, there should be no team orders at McLaren.
I agree. There shouldn't. Let's see. Piastri for me, it's going to be Leclerc. Piastri for Kunal, Leclerc for me. What are your thoughts and your predictions? Let us know down in the comments. The comments only if you're watching on YouTube. If you are listening to us on any other podcasting platform, the way you can reach out to us is through our social media platforms. And then we'll just have a fun time talking about F1 over there as well. But folks, that's been all from us for the preview of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. We'll be back with the review episode on Monday. So make sure you've got your ringer and your alerts on. We can't wait to share what the race was like with you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening.